Shadowkiss, Chapter 22. Dear reader, the counselor must not have had much of a life because she scheduled our next appointment on a Sunday. I was not thrilled about it, seeing as it was not just my day off, it was also the day my friends had off. Orders were orders, however, so I grudgingly showed up. You're wrong, I told her as soon as I sat down. We had not really addressed the questions from my first session yet. We have spent our last couple of times talking about my mother and what I thought of the field experience. What about? She asked. She wore a sleeveless floral dress that seems too cold for a day like today. It also bore an eerie resemblance of the nature photographs that hung around the office. About the guy, I don't just like him because I cannot have him. I like him because he's him. I have proven it to myself. Proven it? How? It's a long story. I said easily. I don't really want to get into the details of my ardent compulsion experiment. You just have to trust me. What about the other things we talked about? She asked. What about your feelings about Lisa? The idea was wrong too. Did you prove it yourself? No, but it was not the kind of thing I could really test the same way. Then how can you be sure? She asked. Because I am. That was the best answer she was going to get. How have things been with her recently? Recently? Huh? Have you been spent a lot of time together? Keep up with what she's been doing? Sure, kind of. I don't see her as much. She is doing the same thing as usual, though. Hanging out with Christian, yeah, acting every test. How? And she practically got Leah's website memorized. Lee? I explained the Queen's offer to the right. She won't even be there until fall, but Lisa's already looking at all her classes and trying to figure out what she wants to major in. What about you? What about me? What will you do while she attends classes? I'll go with her. That's what usually happens if Amora has a guardian close to her age. They will probably enroll me too. You will take the same classes she does? Yeah. Or these classes you could rather take instead? How do I know? She had not even picked the ones she is going to take, so I don't know if I want to take them or not. But it does not matter, I have to go with her. And you don't have a problem with that? My temper was starting to prickle. This was exactly what I had not wanted to talk about. No, I said tightly. I know Gerard wanted me to elaborate, but I refused to. We held each other's eyes for a few moments, almost like we were challenging the other to look away. Or maybe I was reading too much into it. She glanced down at the mysterious notepad she always held and flipped through a couple of pages. I noticed her nails were perfectly shaped and painted red. The polish on mine had been started to crack. Could you rather not talk about Lisa today? She asked at the last. We can talk about whatever you think it is useful. What do you think is useful? Damn it. She was doing the question thing again. I wondered if one of the certificates on her wall gave her some sort of special qualities to do that. I think it could be useful if you stop talking to me like I'm a Mora. You act like I have choices, like I have the right to be upset about any of this or pick what classes I want to take. Let's say I could choose them. What good could it do? What going to do with those classes? Go be a lawyer or a marine biologist? There is no point in me having my own schedule. Everything already decided for me. Are you okay with that? It could have been a question, but she said it like a statement of fact. I searched. I'm okay with keeping her safe, and that is what you keeping missing here. Every job has bad parts. Do I want to sit through her calculus classes? No, but I have to because the other part is more important. Do you want to listen to angry teenagers try to block your efforts? No, but you have to because the rest of your job is more important. Actually, she said unexpectedly, that is my favorite part of the job. I could not tell if she was joking or not, but I decided to pursue it, particularly since she had not responded with a question I assigned. I just hate everyone acting like I am being forced to be a guardian. Who's everyone? Well, you and this guy I met at court. This Dampier and named the Ambrose. He's a blood whore. Yeah, guy, blood whore. Like, that was not obvious. I waited to see if she could react it on the term, but she don't. He made it sound like I was trapped in his life and all that too, but I'm not. This is what I want. I'm good at this. I know how to fight and I know how to defend others. Have you ever seen a Strigoi? She shook her head. Well, I have. And when I say I want to spend my life protecting Mora and killing Strigoi, I mean it. Strigoi are evil and needed to be whipped out. I'm happy to do that, and if I get to be with my best friend in the process, that is even better. I understand that, but what happens if you want other things, things that you cannot have by choosing this lifestyle? I cross my arms. Same answer as before. There are good and bad sides to everything. We just have to balance them as best as we can. I mean, are you going to try to tell me that life is not that way? That if I cannot have everything perfect, that there is something wrong with me? No, of course not, she said, titling back in her chair. I want you to have a wonderful life, but I cannot expect a perfect one. No one can. But what I think is interesting here is how you respond and cope when you have to reconcile those contradictory pieces of your life. When having one thing means you cannot have another. Everyone goes through that. I felt like I was repeating myself. Yes, but not everyone goes just as a result of it. It took several heavy seconds for me to finally realize what she was getting at. So, wait. You're saying that the reason I am seeing Manson is because I secretly resent Lisa for the things I cannot have in my life. What happened to all the trauma I have been going through? I thought that was the reason I was seeing Manson. I think there is a lot of reason you're seeing Manson, she said, and that is what we are exploring. And yet, I said, we are never actually talk about Manson. Daryl smiled serenely, don't we? Our session ended. Does she always answer your question with question? I asked Eliza later. I was walking with her through the quad, heading towards the common for dinner. Afterward, we were going to meet up with the others for a movie. It had been a while since she and I hung out just by ourselves, and I realized how much I could miss it. We don't see the same counselor, she laughed. It could be a conflict of interest. Well, does your do then? Not that I really noticed. I take it your does. Yeah, it was actually pretty amazing to watch. Who know the day could come when could be comparing notes on therapy? We both laughed at that. Several moments passed, and then we started to say something. She wanted to tell me about what had happened with Jess and Ruff, not realizing I already know before she could say anything, though someone joined us. Dean, Barnes, Heroes, a bunch of us are trying to figure out your your on half time. Great. I could know somebody could ask about this sooner or later, and honestly, I was kind of surprised it had not happened already. Everyone had been too busy with their own field experience to give it much thought until now. I had an excuse ready. I have been sick. Dr. Aldisky don't want me going full time. Really? She asked, straggling a little. I thought they were always talking about how in the real world you don't get sick days or something like that. Well, this is not the real world, and Dr. Aldersky's word is final. I hear it is because you are a threat to Christian. No, believe me, that is not it. The reason of alcohol radiating off him like me a convincing way to change the subject. Have you been drinking? Yeah. Shane got some stuff and had a few of us up in the room. Hey what? I asked. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like you disapprove. I'm not, I argued. Lisa giggled. You are, actually. Jean put an offended face. Hey, it is my day off, and even if it is Sunday, that does not mean I cannot something moved beside us. I don't even hesitate. I was too fast, too convert to be anything friendly, and it was wearing all black. I threw myself between it and Lisa and lashed out at my attacker. In a flurry of activity, I vaguely recognized a guardian who generally thought the elementary non-voice. Her name was Jenny or John or something like that. Jen, that was it. She was taller than me, but my fist made connect with her face anyway. She struck back, and then I noticed another shape coming up beside her. Yuri. I leaped over so that she was between him and me. I kicked her in the stomach. She fell towards him and both stumbled. In the brief moment, I had my platter stake out and aimed for her heart. I hit the mark and she immediately stepped aside since she was now technically dead. Yura and I then faced off. Beyond me, I heard a muffled sound that I suspect was Din fighting his own attacker or attackers. I don't have time to check it. I needed to dispatch Yuri, which was harder since he was stronger than Jen. He and I circled before feeding and landing blows. Finally, he made his major move, but I was faster and wriggled out of his grip. I stayed out of his reach just long enough to stack him too. As soon as he backed away in defeat, I turned towards Din. Lisa stood off to the side, watching as Dean spat with his attacker. It was pathetic, to say the least. I could give Ryan a hard time, but his mistakes were nothing compared to this. Dean's splatter stake was on the ground, and his moves were jerky and unsteady. I decided that he was more of liability if he stayed in the fight. I threw myself forward and shoved him out of the way, off towards Lisa. I think I might have pushed harder enough to make him fall, but I don't care. I needed him out of the way. Facing my opponent, I saw Drummond. It was unexpected. Some little voice in the back of my head said I could not fight Drummond. The rest of me reminded that voice that I could been doing it for last 6 months, and besides, he was not Drummond right now. He was my enemy. I sprang towards him with a stake, hoping to catch him by surprise, but Drummond was hard to catch by surprise, and he was fast. Oh, so fast! It was like he know what I was going to do before I did it. He halted my attack with a glancing blow to the side of my head. I knew it could hurt later, but my adrenaline was running too strong for me to pay attention to it now. Distantly, I realized some other people had come to watch us. Drummond and I were celebrities in different ways around here, and our mentoring relationship added to the drama. This was the prime time entertainment. My eyes were only on Drummond though. As we tested each other, attacking and blocking, I tried to remember everything he could taught me. I also tried to remember everything I knew about him. I could practice with him for months. I knew him, know his moves, just as he knew mine. I could anticipate him the same way. Once I started using the knowledge, the fight grew tricky. We were too well matched, both of us too fast. My heart thumped in my chest and sweat cooked my skin. Then Drummond finally got through. He moved in for an attack, coming at me with full force of his body. I'll block the worst of it, but he was so strong that I was the one who stumbled from the impact. He don't waste the opportunity and drag me to the ground, trying to pin me. Being trapped like that by a strigoi could likely result in the neck being bitten or broken. I cannot let that happen. So although he had most of me to the ground, I managed to shove my elbow and nail him in the face. He flinched, and that was all I needed. I rolled him over and held him down. He fought to push me off, and I pushed right back while also trying to maneuver my stack. He was so strong though. I was certain I could not be able to hold him. Then, just as I thought I could lose my hold, I got a good grip on the stake. Unlike that, the stake came down over his head. It was done. Behind me, people are clapping, but all I noticed was Drummond. Our gazes were locked. I was still strangling him, my hands pressed against his chest. Both of us were sweating and breathing heavily. His eyes looked at me with pride and a hell lot of more. He was so close, and my whole body yearned for him, again thinking he was a piece of me I needed in order to be complete. The air between us seemed warm and heady, and I could have given anything in that moment to lie down with him and have his arms wrap around me. His expression showed me that he was thinking the same thing. The fight was finished, but remains of the adrenal and animal intensity remained. Then a hand reached down, and Jen helped me stand up. She and Uri were beaming, as were the spectres who had wandered up. Even Lisa looked impressed. Dean, understandably, looked miserable. I hope word of my stunning victory could spread around campus as fast as the recent bad stuff about me had. Probably not. Well done, said Uri. You took down all three of us. That was textbook perfect. Grimmett was on his feet now too. I looked pointedly at the other two guardians because I was pretty sure if I looked at him, my expression could give away everything away. My breathing was still heavy. I hope I don't hurt any of you, I said. This made all of them laugh. That's our job, said Jean. Don't worry about us. We are tough. She glanced at Drummond. She got you pretty good with her elbow. Drummond rubbed his face near his eyes, and I hope he don't cause too much damage. The student surprised the teacher. He joked, or stakes rather. Yuri was giving Dean a hard look. Alcohol is not allowed on the campus. It is Sunday, he exclaimed. We are not supposed to be on duty. There are no rules in the real world, said Jen in a very teacher like way. Consider this a pop quiz. You passed it, Rose. Very nice job. Thanks. Wish I could say the same for my clothes. I was wet and muddy. I was going to have to go change, Liz. I will meet you for dinner. Okay. Her face was alight. She was so proud of me, she could barely contain it. I could also sense her keeping something secret, and I wondered if there could be congratulating surprise when I saw her later. I don't probe too deeply, least I ruin it. And you, said Rui, tugging at Dean's sleeve, are you going to take a walk with us? I met dramatized. I wish he could have stuck around and talked. My adrenaline was running high and I wanted to celebrate. I have done it. Finally, after all the embarrassment over my fumbles and alleged incomplete, I could finally prove what I could do. I wanted to start dancing. Drummond had to go with the others, though, and only a slight nod of his head told me he wished it were otherwise. I signed and watched them leave, and then I walked back to my dorm room alone. Back in my room, I discovered the situation was worse than I thought. Once I stripped off my muddy clothes, I realized I was going to need a shower and a good scrubbing before I was presentable. By the time it was all done, nearly an hour has passed, and I missed most of the dinner. I ran back to the comments, wondering why Lisa had not sent me any nagging thoughts. She had a tendency to do that when I was running late. Probably she decided I could deserve a break after my tramp. Thinking about it again, a big grin crept over my face, one that died up when I headed down the hallway that led to the cafeteria. A big group of people had gathered around something, and I recognized intentionally international sign of a fight. Considering how Jess band like to conduct their meetings in secret, I figured this probably had nothing to do with them. Squeezing through people, I pushed myself forward and peeked over some heads, curious as to who could have drawn such a crowd. It was Arden and Christian and Eid, but Eid was clearly there in a referee role. He was standing between them, trying to keep them away from each other. Man is gone. I shoved aside to the last few people in front of me and hurried to Eid's sides. What the hell is going on? I demanded. He looked relieved to see me. He might be able to fend off our instructor in combat, but this situation was clearly something he was confused about. No idea. I looked at the two combatants. Fortunately, no one seems to have to hit anybody yet. It also looked as though Christian was the one on the offensive. How long did you think you could get away with it? He exclaimed, his eyes were the blue fire. Did you seriously think everyone could keep buying your act? Adrian looked ionic as usual, but I could see some anxiety under that lazy smile. He don't want to be in this situation. Unlike Eid, he was not even sure how it had happened. Honestly, said Adrian, and in a weary voice, I have no idea what you're talking about. Can we please just go and sit down and discuss this reasonably? Sure, of course, you could want that. You're afraid I might do this. Christian held up his hand. A ball of flame danced over his palm. Even under the fluorescent lights, it glowed bright orange with a deep blue core. There were gaps around the crowd. I could longer since gotten used to the idea of moral fighting with magic, Christian in particular. But for most, it just still a tobacco thing. Christian smirked. What have you got to fight back with? Plans? If you're going to start fights for no reason, you should at least do it in the old fashioned way and throw a punch, said Adrian. His voice was light, but he was still uneasy. My guess was that he figured he could do better with a hand to hand than spit to fire. No, interrupted Ethan. No one is going to set anyone on fire. No one is going to punch anybody. There has been some huge mistake. What it is? I demanded. What happened? Your friend there thinks I'm planning to marry Lisa and carry her off into the sunset, said Adrian. He spoke to me, but his eyes never left Christian. Don't act like it is not true, growled Christian. I know it is. It has been a part of your plan, yours and the Queen's. She's been begging you the whole time. Coming back here, the whole studying thing, it was a scam to get Lisa away from me and tied to your family instead. Do you have any idea how paranoid you sound? Asked Adrian. My great aunt has to manage the entire Morai government. Do you think she really cares about who is dating who in the high school, especially with the state of affairs lately? Look, I'm sorry about all the time I have spent with her. We will find her and figure this out. I really was not trying to get between you. There is no conspiracy going on here. Yes, there is, said Christian. He glanced over at me under his call. Is not there? Rose knows. Rose has known for a while about this. She even talked to the Queen about it. That is ridiculous, said Adrian, surprised enough that he shot me a quick glance. Right? Well, I began realizing this was getting very ugly very quick. Yes and no. See? Asked Christian romantically. The fire flew from his hand, but Eid and I jumped into motion at the same time. People screamed. Eid grabbed Christian, forcing the fire to fly high. Meanwhile, I grabbed Adrian and slammed him in the floor. It was lucky division of labor. I don't want to think what could have happened if Eid and I had gone for the same person. Glad you care, muttered Adrian, wincing as he lifted his head from the floor. Compel him, I murmured as I held him up. We need to sort this out without someone spontaneously combusting. Eid was trying to restrain Christian from leaping forward. I grabbed a hold of one arm to help. Adrian don't look thrilled about coming any closer, but he obeyed me nothing less. Christian tried to jerk free, but could not fight both. Eid and me, uneasily, probably afraid of his hair catching on fire. Adrian leaned over Christian and made eye contact. Christian, stop this. Let's talk. Christian struggled a little against his resistance, but slowly his face went slack and his eyes started to glaze over. Let's talk about this, repeated Adrian. Okay, said Christian. There was a collective sign of disappointment from the crowd. Adrian had used his compulsion smoothly enough that no one was suspected. I had looked as though Christian had simply seen reason. As the crowd disappeared, Eve and I released Christian enough to lead him over to the corner where we could talk in private. As soon as Adrian broke the gaze, Christian's face filled with fury and he tried to leap at Adrian. Eve and I were already holding him. He don't move. What did you just do? Exclaimed Christian. Several people down the hall glanced back, no doubt hoping there could be a fright. After all, I shouted loudly in his ear. He flinched. Ouch. Be quiet. Something is wrong here, and we need to figure it out before you do something stupid. What is wrong? Christian said, glaring at Adrian. Is that they are trying to break up Lisa and me? And you know about it, Rose? Adrian glanced at me. Do you really? Yeah, long story. I turned back to Christian. Look, Adrian don't have anything to do with this. Not intentionally. It was Titan's idea, and she has not even actually done anything yet. It is just her long-term plan. Hers alone, not his. Then how did you know about it? Demanded Christian. Because she told me. She was afraid that I was moving in on Adrian. Really? Did you defend our laugh? Adrian asked. Be quiet. I said. What I want to know, Christian, is who told you? Ruff, he said, looking uncertain for the first time. You should have known better than to listen to him, remarked Eid, face darkening at the name. Except for once, Ruff was actually telling the truth. Aside from Adrian in on it, Ruff related to the Queen's best friend. I explained. Wonderful, said Christian, who seemed calm enough. So Eid and I released him. We have all been played. I looked around, suddenly taken back by something. Where is Lisa? Why don't she stop all of this? Adrian raised her eyebrow at me. You tell us, where is she? She don't come to dinner. I cannot. I frowned. I have gotten so good at shielding myself when I needed to do that. Long periods of time could not go by without me feeling anything from her. This time I sensed nothing because there was nothing coming from her. I cannot feel her. Three sets of eyes started at me. Is she asleep? Asked Eid. I can tell when she is asleep. This is something different. Slowly, I gained a sense of where she was. She has been blocking me out on purpose, trying to hide from me. But I have found her as I always did. There she is. She was. Oh God! My scream rang down the hall, echoing Lisa's own scream as far as pain shoot through her.